Jennifer Lawrence is known for her brash, no BS attitude, but that attitude gets her in trouble a lot, and many people wonder if she's actually just rude. That's why today on BTS, we're going to be breaking down the top 10 times Jennifer Lawrence was caught being rude in public. But first, make sure to subscribe if you're new here. In at number 10, culturally insensitive. Jennifer got into a massive scandal after she admitted to being insensitive to the Hawaiian culture. Basically, Jen was filming the Hunger Games in Hawaii, and in the movie she wears wetsuits a lot, which can get pretty itchy. So in 2016 on the Graham Norton show, she admitted that she'd scratched her butt on some sacred ceremonial rocks while filming in Hawaii. She said, quote, "There were sacred rocks. I don't know, they were ancestors, who knows? They were sacred, and you're not supposed to sit on them because you're not supposed to expose your genitalia to them. I, however, was in a wetsuit for this whole shoot. Oh my god, they were so good for butt itching." Apparently, she moved the rock so much at one point one came loose and started a landslide. The Hawaiian people thought it was a sign of a curse, but it was just Jen being disrespectful. She tried to be funny and relatable while telling the story and didn't think she would get in any trouble, but people were angry at how nonchalantly she admitted to disrespecting Hawaii. After the backlash, she posted an apology to Facebook, but many didn't buy it. And at number 9, weight insensitivity. One thing many fans know about Jen is that she speaks off the cuff and rarely filters out what she says, which can cause a lot of funny moments as well as a lot of insensitive ones. One thing she gets steady backlash about is her comments about her own weight. Jen has been open about the toxicity of weight in Hollywood and says that she was often asked to lose weight before movies. Because of this, she's been quoted saying, quote, "In Hollywood, I'm obese. I'm considered a fat actress. I'm Val Kilmer in that one picture on the beach." Another quote said, quote, "I eat like a caveman. I'll be the only actress that doesn't have anorexia rumors." Many people take these comments to be body positive, and although we love that she won't lose weight for movies, she's also already pretty slender, so giving the middle finger to the man here is a lot easier for her. And when someone the size of Jen calls herself fat, that makes anyone larger than her feel even more insecure about their own weight. Like if Jen calls herself overweight, literally what am I? I know it's all jokes, but the self-deprecation can seem pretty insincere at times. And at number 8, biphobic comments. Another thing that's gotten Jen heat in the press has been some biphobic comments that she made about one of the characters she played. She played X-Men character Mystique in the movie franchise, and was shocked to learn that the character was actually bisexual. When speaking about the character's sexuality, she said, quote, "She has kids, she has night crawlers, and she sleeps with Magneto. Unless I'm completely wrong, I mean, she's 100 years old, she definitely had time for a lesbian phase." And obviously that phrase is gonna anger a lot of people in the community who've been working hard to break those stigmas, especially because bisexuality is not a phase. Jen also called her own style at one point, quote, "power lesbian," because she had a pixie haircut, which is just wrong on so many levels. And at number 7, trash reporter. Jennifer Lawrence got massive backlash after she was rude to a reporter at the 2016 Golden Globes. After she accepted the award, she was in the press room answering questions from tons of reporters. At one point, a Spanish reporter who was speaking with an accent started asking a question, but he was looking at his phone the whole time. Jennifer tried to joke around by telling the reporter to put down his phone if he wanted to ask her questions. She also mocked him after he mistook the event for the Oscars. However, it was pretty obvious that he was just reading his questions off his phone, which is pretty common for reporters these days. After her rude comments, hate flooded in against the star. People also gave the perspective that the reporter may have been translating his questions into English, that's why he was staring at his phone. It also just rubbed people the wrong way that she assumed that everyone speaks English. And at number 6, paparazzi. Like many other celebrities in Hollywood, Jennifer Lawrence hates paparazzi. But really, I mean, who can blame her? And she makes a point to bring up her disdain for paparazzi whenever possible. Like in one interview with Vogue, where she said, quote, "If I were just your average 23-year-old girl and I called the police to say that there were strange men sleeping on my lawn and following me to Starbucks, they would leap into action. But because I'm a famous person, well, sorry ma'am, there's nothing we can do. It makes no sense." Jen has also talked about how she doesn't like fame and how fan interactions make her really uncomfortable. So that's obviously a big part of the reason that she maintains such a low profile most of the time. Halfway at number 5, Lindsay Lohan. Jennifer Lawrence has poked fun at many fellow celebrities over the years, but none was worse than when she made some nasty comments about Lindsay Lohan. While Jennifer Lawrence was on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert in 2015, Lawrence offended Lindsay Lohan and her family. It started when Lawrence was talking about how she got a stomach virus while filming, but she still kept shooting. Then she made the comment, quote, "I get like Lindsay Lohan grade exhaustion, but without any drugs or alcohol." And obviously those kinds of words will start a fight with anybody. Almost right after the show aired, Lohan's younger sister, Aliana, tweeted out, quote, "I never breathe life into negativity, but I stand by my family family disappointed in Jennifer Lawrence, not cool. Lindsay Lohan then replied to the tweet saying, quote, "Thank you, sister. Maybe who you're referring to should learn to support others like Maya Angelou." Lohan's mom also commented on the incident weeks later, so it's safe to say Lohan's family and fans hate Jennifer Lawrence. And at number 4, Lala Kent. This is another example of Jen talking trash about a fellow celebrity and then getting called out. While Jen was on an episode of Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen, she decided to take aim at Vanderpump Rules star Lala Kent. It started when Andy was asking Jennifer what she thought of the cast of Vanderpump Rules. When the conversation went to Lala, Lawrence straight up called her the C word, along with tons of other digs at her. As a response, Lala tweeted out, quote, "Did Jennifer Lawrence really call me the C word on Watch What Happens Live and talk about my mama? B, you better pray I don't see you in the streets." And that was just the first of a long string of now deleted tweets. The shade didn't stop there. Lala went on the Juicy Scoop podcast and called out Jennifer further. She said that Lawrence had, quote, 2 failed films in a row, and said that she was the type of girl that would sleep with Harvey Weinstein for a role. Lawrence never responded to any of the shade, probably because she knew she was in the wrong. And at number 3, Jennifer Lopez. I wouldn't classify this one as rude as much as just proving that Jennifer Lawrence can be very over dramatic. The feud started when Lawrence was on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, and Lawrence shared a story from the Met Ball. Apparently Jennifer Lawrence and Jimmy Kimmel were very drunk and wanted to ask J-Lo to dance. Apparently they went over to her and she turned them down, with Lopez saying she just wanted to observe. And even though the story was lighthearted, it still made J-Lo look kinda bad for saying no. So J-Lo decided to set the record straight, and she actually came up with her version of events. She told Access Hollywood, quote, "I remember that we were at the Met Ball and Kanye was about to perform and it was like a crazy moment. And then they came over and they were like, let's go dance, and I was like, no, I'm good right here. But I didn't mean it like I don't want to dance with you, I just meant it like it's so crowded in here, let's just stay right here." So she basically called out J-Lo on TV for no reason. And at number 2, rude to fans. Probably one of the most bizarre things about Jennifer Lawrence is that she's admitted that she hates speaking to fans. It's so bad that she's decided to be really rude to fans so they leave her alone. Interesting strategy. When speaking with Adam Sandler, she told him, quote, "Generally once I enter a public place, I become incredibly rude. I turn into a huge a-hole." She then continued that it's her way of defending herself, and that she acts like this to make sure nobody crosses any boundaries. And just to contrast how terrible Jen sounded here, Adam Sandler said he makes a point to be really nice to his fans, saying, quote, "My life's nearing the end. I want to meet as many people as I can." And finally, number 1, hurricane. Jennifer Lawrence has become increasingly more political over the years, and she was frequently critical of Donald Trump during his presidency. However, she got some heat after she made some comments about hurricanes. From the quotes that were taken, it seemed like Jennifer Lawrence was blaming the influx of hurricanes on Trump's win, saying that Mother Nature was raging. She was harshly criticized for the comments, so she posted a statement about the incident on her Facebook page. She wrote in part, quote, "My remarks were taken grossly out of context. Obviously, I never claimed that President Trump was responsible for these tragic hurricanes. That is a silly and preposterous headline that is unfortunate, because it detracts from the millions of lives that are being impacted by these devastating storms and the recent earthquakes." So that's all for this, guys. Let me know your thoughts below.
It seems as though there's always at least one nightmare customer at restaurants. Those people who berate the staff, make outrageous demands, and won't hesitate to send their food back multiple times. Sometimes those are just regular Joes, and sometimes they're celebrities. Either way, it's time to expose some bad manners as we count down the top 10 celebrities who were caught being rude at restaurants. At number 10, Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf is sorta known around Hollywood for his attitude. He's had quite a few outbursts in his day, but I'm going to tell you about one restaurant freakout that was just so uncalled for and really disrespectful. Back in 2017, Shia had a bit of a meltdown at a bowling alley restaurant, and I'm guessing it was all chalked up to him being hangry or something, because Shia flipped out at staff members over some french fries. While at the restaurant in the bowling alley, he went up to order some french fries, and when he was refused, probably because of how rude and aggressive he was being, things got out of hand pretty quickly. In a video captured of the incident, you see Shia behind the bar yelling at one of the staff members about his french fries. The bartender was feeling so threatened by Shia's behavior that he was holding a large bottle of Grey Goose vodka as a sort of defensive tactic. It looked like he was ready to smack the actor with the bottle if he got too close, you know? And it even took him to the point of angrily yelling that the bartender was, quote, "an effing racist." After being escorted from the premises, Shia kept saying that they effed up and demanded that someone called the police, even though it was definitely unnecessary. There are those who were there that night who said that that the actor was drinking a lot that night and that his outburst was probably fueled by his alcoholism, something that the actor has been dealing with. He was very rude and aggressive towards the people in the establishment, and it probably left people with a very different view of the actor. At number 9, Stuart Rahr. Billionaire and philanthropist Stuart Rahr is no longer welcome at a popular restaurant thanks to his poor behavior. After throwing a tantrum at Midtown's Nobu 57 back in 2012, Stuart Rahr is no longer welcome at that location nor any other Nobu restaurants because of how rude and disruptive he was towards staff and other guests. It was reported that Rahr made quite a scene after not being seated at his favorite table. I mean, there were plenty of other tables to sit at, but this was his table, and those other tables just wouldn't do. According to sources, the billionaire was even caught trying to bribe guests by paying for their meal, which could have cost upwards of $1,000 in order to secure his favorite spot, and when he got caught, he fired back at a manager using some pretty colorful language. According to restaurant staff, he arrived late at the restaurant, and upon his arrival, he marched up to the table and demanded that the people sitting there leave because it was his spot. But the drama just doesn't end there though. He then sent an all-caps email which included some pretty harsh language to the restaurant executives and added several A-list celebrities to the thread. And then he went back to the restaurant to harass the staff even more. In the end, he ended up getting banned for life, and no one was quick to forget how rude he was that day. Now, before I go any further, I would like to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video and also subscribe to Lindsay Ivan's brand new reaction channel, Peach. It launches at the end of May, so go subscribe and tell her that we sent you. At number 8, Ruby Rose. Now, one person that you don't normally think of as rude is model and actress Ruby Rose, but apparently she can be quite rude and disruptive at dining establishments. Back in 2016, Ruby Rose apparently caused such a ruckus at a restaurant that the restaurant's owner had to kick her out. While dining at the Rebellion Bar and Urban Kitchen, Ruby was really rude to one of the restaurant servers and threw a bit of a tantrum. She even threw french fries at the staff member. Ruby had a bit of a Karen moment that day because she was upset about how long she had been waiting for her meal. According to Ruby, she had been waiting in the restaurant for over 90 minutes for her food, which would already anger someone, but to make matters worse, she was also allegedly being egged on by the bartender. The bartender was allegedly mocking and making fun of Ruby for refusing drinks, and they even made fun of her sobriety. So between the rude bartender and the long wait, Ruby just lost her patience and got really mad. She lost her cool and threw some food around, so maybe her anger was a little warranted because of how she was treated by the bartender, but throwing things at staff was a little extreme and very rude. What do you guys think? Was her outburst uncalled for, or would you react in a similar way? At number 7, Usher. I didn't really think singer Usher was one of those stuck-up Hollywood types, but apparently he is. According to a service worker who's waited on Usher on many occasions, he's known to walk into restaurants and other establishments with the intention of being waited on hand and foot. And not just even for himself, but for his entourage as well. I mean, there's nothing wrong with expecting quality service, but sometimes that mindset can go a little too far. Even though he expects the best service money can buy, it turns out that he has no intention of buying, as he's known to skip out on paying the bill by either leaving before the bill is given or making someone else pay for it. He's also one of those celebrities who's pulled the "do you know who I am" card, as he's used that as an excuse to get out of being carded when ordering an alcoholic beverage. On top of that, he's known to be a pretty lousy tipper, either tipping nothing or tipping with a signed CD or photo. He might make good music, but he makes for a horrible dining room guest. At number 6, Tommy Lee. Back in 2019, musician Tommy Lee and his wife were thrown out of a high-end restaurant in New Orleans after being unruly and rude with staff members. According to sources from TMZ, the couple were looking to dine at Emeril Lagasse's restaurant when the couple got into an altercation with staff members. Tommy and his wife entered the restaurant wearing hats, and according to the restaurant's dress code, they aren't allowed to wear them, so they were simply asked to take the hats off. This is when things took a turn, as Tommy got very upset with this rule and threw some colorful language about. He eventually moved his hat as they were seated at their table, but things escalated even further. The couple were then confronted about their use of profanity in the restaurant because it was rude, and staff members demanded that they take accountability for their actions. This made Tommy even more frustrated with the staff, and after a long spew of profanities, the restaurant's employees were forced to remove the pair from the premises. They eventually found somewhere else to go, but their rudeness was certainly uncalled for. All that was asked of them was to simply follow the restaurant's dress code. rude. At number 5, Ariana Grande. One celebrity that you don't often see getting into conflicts is Ariana Grande. For the most part, the singer keeps to herself and doesn't really cause much high-profile drama, but she has had her moments in the past, and one in particular that was very rude. Ariana was caught in a scandal in 2015 after being exposed for her behavior while visiting a bakery in California. Though it may not be technically a traditional restaurant, it's still an eating establishment, so it counts. Surveillance cameras in the donut shop caught the singer licking donuts while the employees weren't looking, and even caught her yelling about her distaste for America's eating habits. The footage was leaked and shared by TMZ, and after the footage went viral, the owner of the donut shop spoke out about Ariana and that she was also caught spitting on some of the donuts as well, and said that she was reportedly very rude to staff working there, demanding that the person helping her keep bringing out the pastries that the other employees were baking. As if that was all, the shop's owner also said that the donuts that were defiled by Ariana were unknowingly sold to other customers that day. So not only did she disrespect the staff and their baked goods, but also the other customers, though they might not have known it. At number 4, Kit Harington. Though he played a noble man of the Night's Watch on Game of Thrones, actor Kit Harington was less than chivalrous at a bar in NYC, resulting in him having to be removed from the establishment by staff members. According to a report from TMZ in 2018, the King in the North was having a night out at a bar playing pool and drinking to excess and being quite rude to people. During one of his pool matches, it is said that the actor got very unruly and belligerent and was asked to leave the premises, which he did. But a little while later, he came back to the establishment, and at that point, he had to be forcibly removed from the bar. Kit was apparently being rude and disrespectful to those working there as well as other patrons, as his drunken state caused him to act on some less than kind impulses. Since this accident, Kit has come out to address his excessive drinking, saying that he was having a hard time coping with the end of Game of Thrones. After filming wrapped on the HBO show, Kit actually checked himself into rehab for his own well-being and sought out therapy to help him cope with his evolving career. It's good to know that this event caused him to take a step back and reevaluate his choices, but people probably still saw him as another rude celebrity star in that moment. At number 3, Britney Spears. Looking back on it now, this isn't something that should have been made fun of in the media, but back in 2007, during her public fall from grace, Britney Spears was berated by the public after she put on quite a spectacle while dining at the Chateau Marmont. Britney was seen as a rude and unruly guest, as diners were shocked to see Britney smearing her face with gourmet food in a show of inappropriate behavior. As a result, she was removed from the premises and subsequently banned from the restaurant. People who witnessed Britney's behavior said that they wouldn't even expect this kind of behavior from a teenager, calling Britney's display childish and uncalled for, and even added that royalty had dined at the Chateau Marmont, saying that her behavior was absolutely unacceptable. Apparently, when Britney arrived at the hotel, she looked out of it, but of course, instead of helping her, everyone just watched the spectacle and laughed when she was berated in the media because of it. On top of all the other names Britney was being called at the time, rude became a new way to describe the struggling pop star. At number 2, Lea Michele. I think we all know by now that Lea Michele is a rude celebrity. We learned this last year when she was exposed by countless co-workers for her horrible on-set behavior, but she's also been exposed by restaurant staff for being a rude guest. One waiter's horror story of serving the actress tells us that she was once continuously harassing them while helping her order, while she made fun of them while they were trying to explain the dish's ingredients. Lea apparently insisted that she didn't understand what the waiter was saying, and then went on to complain to several of the restaurant's managers and higher-ups. To make matters more Karen-y, Lea also apparently sent her father to go knock on the kitchen window to berate the cooks 20 minutes after they ordered, demanding that they receive their food because they had been waiting for, quote, hours. This rude behavior doesn't really surprise me coming from Lea, because after hearing her former co-workers' horror stories, I now realize that with Lea, anything is possible. And finally, at number 1, Kendall Jenner. Being that she is a member of the Jenner family, rude behavior doesn't really surprise me. Back in 2014, a story broke about how Kendall had been allegedly very rude at a restaurant, ending with her throwing money at a staff member. The story here goes that she and Hailey Baldwin was dining at a restaurant together when they allegedly left without paying for their meal. Their bill came up to about $60, so it wasn't really that much, but it still doesn't mean that you can get away with not paying for it. A staff member then chased after the pair as they walked away from the restaurant, and when they were stopped and asked to pay for their meal, Kendall allegedly pulled out a couple of $20 bills from her bag and threw it at the staff member. That was seriously rude and certainly uncalled for. Although living next to a celebrity may sound cool, sometimes it's not the most pleasant experience. Sure, you can brag to your friends about living next to an an A-lister, but when celebrity life comes spilling over your side of the fence, you might rethink your living situation. There are apparently a lot of celebrities who aren't the friendliest on the block, so let's talk about some of them as we count down the top 10 celebrities who are rude to their neighbors. At number 10, Jake Paul. Once upon a time, Jake Paul was a Disney star. It's easy to forget he was once on the Disney Channel because he's now focused on harassing boxers, but yeah, he did have a brief career on the network. Back in 2017, he was one of the stars of the Disney Channel show Biebers, and though he and Disney got a lot of success out of the show, things ended on a sour note as too much bad press ended up with Jake losing his job. Around this time, Jake was often in the news being slammed and criticized for his stunts and constant filming because of his Team 10 mates, and he had been causing quite a number of disturbances in his residential area. Jake and the Team 10 crew were lighting backyards on fire and causing a lot of ruckus to the point where Jake's neighbors started issuing complaints about the noise and destruction going on in the area. Jake's neighbors had police issuing warnings and fines for all sorts of things, and whenever Jake would get in trouble, the media reported on it, and it all got back to Disney. Jake ended up losing his job all because of the trouble he was causing, and honestly, the neighbors couldn't care less. To them, he got what he deserved, and when he finally moved out of the area, they were thrilled. I couldn't imagine living next to the Team 10 house with all of the fans coming around and the constant noise. Jake surely was not very hospitable then. At number 9, Catherine Zeta-Jones. I did a series of videos exposing mean celebrities, and one of the people I exposed was Catherine Zeta-Jones. I've talked about how she's known to be mean and dismissive towards fans, but those aren't the only people to be rubbed the wrong way by the actress. Some neighbors have exposed the actress for being pretty rude. One person even shared a story about how Catherine went on a vacation and was renting a condo for a short time while visiting a different city, and she specifically demanded that the other tenants in the building be banned from using the building's gym while she was staying there. As one would expect, this did not go over well with other tenants. No one wants to be told that they can't use the facilities that they pay to enjoy. Those tenants said that she acted very entitled, and none of them were fans of hers from that moment on. If you find out that you'll be living near Catherine Zeta-Jones, I would advise that you find another place to stay. Now, before I carry on with the list, I'd like to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and also head on over to my gaming channel Biber Girl if you're looking for some new fun gaming content to enjoy, and subscribe while you're there. At number 8, Justin Bieber. I think we are all aware of Justin Bieber's destructive phase, right? Around 2014, Justin was constantly in the news for getting into fights, getting into trouble, and just really going a bit off the rails. A lot of people were complaining about Justin's behavior, including his neighbors. One of the biggest scandals that Justin was involved in during that time came about after he reportedly caused over $20,000 worth of damage to his neighbor's house. Neighbors accused the singer and his friends of egging their multi-million-dollar mansion, and they were furious as anyone would be. This was all taken to court where Justin pleaded no contest to the misdemeanor charge, and he got away with not facing a criminal charge in the case. Justin also paid $80,000 to his neighbor in restitution. Things died down a bit between him and his neighbor until 2016, when the neighbor reclassified his lawsuit against the singer, claiming that, quote, things got nasty between them. He said that Justin was a bully, and according to the neighbor, he had been, quote, spitting at, punching, and bullying other members of the public with impunity for years. I'm sure that nowadays Justin is a little nicer to his neighbors, but back then he was really rude. At number 7, Chris Brown. Chris Brown has certainly had his fair share of conflicts, from fighting workers at a gym to having outbursts on various sets, and even his 2009 Rihanna incident, but there's another category of people that the singer has also offended, and those are his neighbors. In 2016, the singer had a day-long standoff with SWAT. This all came about after a woman alleged that Chris had threatened her with a firearm. The woman was able to get away, but eventually the police were called about the incident, but Chris refused to let the police in his home without a warrant, so they set up camp, and that's when SWAT moved in. There were helicopters flying overhead, and the singer even allegedly threw a duffel bag full of firearms and illicit substances out the window. The standoff lasted for hours and had neighbors in the area upset with Chris for causing such a scene. He was eventually arrested, but if you think his problems with his neighbors were over, think again. Chris also faced complaints from neighbors after reportedly driving his ATV around the neighborhood recklessly and doing donuts in the street. If you're thinking about becoming the singer's neighbor, just don't. At number 6, Drake. Drake may be Canadian, but he surely doesn't have that polite Canadian energy. Drake once made enemies with his neighbors in Hidden Hills, California, when they started making noise complaints in response to the rapper's loud and extravagant parties. According to those in the neighborhood, Drake's parties would often go until very early in the morning, causing many of them to lose sleep. After receiving one too many noise complaints, Drake took action, but not in a way that anyone was expecting. Instead of dialing back the parties and being more respectful of the noise level in the neighborhood, Drake decided that flexing was the best solution, so he bought the house next door. He spent $2.8 million to simply expand his land so that those in the immediate vicinity wouldn't have to deal with his mess. He didn't want to be accountable to anyone, so he just bought his way out of the problem. I mean, that is one easy way of handling things, but I'm sure it would have been cheaper to just turn the music down. At number 5, Charlie Sheen. Actor Charlie Sheen had such a dramatic run-in with his neighbor that a lawsuit was filed over it. Charlie's show 2.5 Men was still pretty big at the time of his neighbor drama. Having had 12 seasons from 2003 to 2015, it was one of the biggest and most successful sitcoms on TV, and sometimes success brings drama. Back in 2006, 3 years into the show's run, Charlie Sheen was sued by his neighbor, a woman by the name of Ursula Auburn. She claimed that one of the characters in the show was based on her, and she was really offended by it. In her lawsuit against Charlie, she had claimed that, quote, the wacky neighbor and female stalker Rose was based on her because the character shares similarities to the way Ursula spoke, looked, and dressed in real life. Imagine being exposed like that on TV, seeing what your neighbor thinks of you while watching a dramatic version of yourself on a sitcom. As a result of all this, Ursula tried suing Charlie for, quote, no less than $1 million. The suit eventually settled out of court, and no one really knows if Charlie really did base the character off his neighbor, but it certainly made her upset. At number 4, Taylor Swift. Even though she's known for being pretty nice to people, apparently she's still managed to anger her neighbors. Really, you can't please everyone, but in this case, Taylor's actions caused a major inconvenience to the people around her. In 2013, Taylor made her neighbors pretty upset when she made some additions to her Rhode Island home. Taylor was looking to build a huge wall around her property, but to do that, she needed to have some coastline rocks moved out of the way. This disturbed the surrounding area, and neighbors weren't happy. Taylor's representative said that the movement of the rocks wasn't her choice, but that it was the government who asked her to move the rocks that had drifted into the ocean back to her property line. This was a lot of land disturbance just to build a big wall. Neighbors were not happy about the wall itself because they said that it had taken away the public access that they had enjoyed for years. I think it's safe to say that Taylor had an unpleasant welcome to the neighborhood. At number 3, Machine Gun Kelly. It seems like Machine Gun Kelly isn't just loud on stage, but also at home. You would think that he would put that loud rocker persona to rest while at home in his free time, but according to his neighbors, that couldn't be further from the truth. His neighbors have said that he's been known to host loud and crazy parties, disturbing much of his community, and he's also known to have joyrides with his friends on the block. Neighbors have also complained about loud motorcycles revving their engines at inappropriate times of the night, and he and his guests have spilled over into neighboring properties from time to time. It's also been reported that during parties, Kelly's guests have parked in neighbors' driveways and have blocked in many of the neighbors' cars as well. It seems as though he doesn't really have a sense of respect for other people's properties or quiet hours. At number 2, Natasha Lyonne. Orange is the New Black star Natasha Lyonne is certainly a nasty neighbor. She once had a serious altercation with one of her neighbors that she actually faced criminal charges for. In 2005, there was a warrant out for Natasha's arrest after she confronted her neighbor in a fit of rage. According to sources, Natasha banged on her neighbor's door, stormed into the apartment, and even ripped a mirror off the wall. The actress also allegedly told her neighbor that she was going to hurt her dog. Because of her actions, Natasha was hunted down by authorities and charged with criminal mischief, harassment, and trespassing. Luckily for her, those charges were eventually dropped, but she was ordered to pay her neighbor $2,000 in restitution. Reading about what that neighbor went through, I would have hated to have lived in that area too. Now, I'm not sure what brought on Natasha's fit of rage, but it had to have been something really intense to result in her causing so much damage to her neighbor's property. And finally, number 1, Ivanka Trump. Even the president's daughter can cause some terror in her community. Being high-profile people, you're bound to cause a scene wherever you go, and Ivanka Trump's neighbors neighbors had to learn this the hard way. Shortly after Ivanka and her husband moved to their new home after her father was elected into office, Ivanka's neighbors were already starting to complain. Because of her relationship to the then President of the United States, she and her family always had security in close proximity, and this caused a disturbance in the neighborhood because of how many people were following the family at every waking moment. According to neighbors, even having a walk in the park was a grand affair because there were cars constantly following Ivanka's every move. But it's not just the disturbance caused by security that rubbed people the wrong way. Neighbors also complained about Ivanka's trash, saying that she always missed the neighborhood garbage day and that her trash was constantly stinking up the street. She wasn't very considerate to her neighbors, and they surely hated her for it.
If you guys follow the channel, then you know that celebrities are definitely not as nice as they seem on camera, and some of them have been exposed for being incredibly rude when the cameras were not rolling. I'm Mackenzie, and let's expose the top 10 rudest celebrities in Hollywood in 2021. Also, make sure to subscribe if you're new here. In at number 10, Demi Lovato. Demi Lovato got tons of backlash after she tried to cancel a small business because she didn't like the products that they were selling. Demi decided to grab some frozen yogurt from a popular froyo place in LA called The Big Chill, but she wasn't happy with what she saw while in the shop and shared her disdain with her over 100 million Instagram followers, writing on her story, quote, "Finding it extremely hard to order froyo from The Big Chill when you have to walk past tons of sugar-free cookies / other diet foods before you get to the counter. Do better, please." Adding the hashtag diet culture vultures. This caused an online feud between Demi and the shop, where Demi called them diet vultures, while they said they were just selling products for their broad customer base, which includes diabetics, celiac, and vegans. The general consensus around this whole event is that Demi is an entitled Karen, and she needs to realize that the world does not revolve around her. Of course, her anger was spurred from her long struggle with food issues. However, she should not have publicly tried to ruin a small business, especially during a pandemic. In at number 9, Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan gained a reputation for being rude during a scandal with Meghan Markle, and there's actually a dating story behind it makes the whole thing even more juicy. So apparently Piers asked Morgan out on a date before she was with Harry, of course. And rumor has it that they went out on the date, but Meghan ghosted Piers after, so this could be the reason that he is constantly critical of her. More recently, after Meghan's explosive interview with Oprah Winfrey, Piers did not hold back, trashing her on Good Morning Britain. Before him and the other hosts could even discuss the topic, he went on raging about how the interview is tarnishing the reputation of Britain around the world and hurting everything the Queen has worked so hard for. He also said that he doesn't believe a word that she says. He later left the show after outrage against his comments. In at number 8, James Corden. James Corden seems really nice on camera, but is well known for being awful off set. His rep is so bad that he did a Reddit AMA in 2019, and it practically turned into a roasting session, with tons of people bringing up terrible encounters they had with Corden. Apparently, he goes out of his way to be mean, like advocating for lower pay for TV writers. Literally, why would a rich celebrity ever do that? I have no idea. Apparently, Corden is also known to be rude when fans ask for photos or an autograph with him, especially if he's on set filming. Members of his crew have also claimed that he throws tantrums over minor things and is terrible to work for. He's basically the male version of Ellen. In at number 7, David Letterman. Several old interview clips of David Letterman's have resurfaced recently, and many are saying that he crossed major lines. One example was with Lindsay Lohan from 2013. She did the interview recently at a rehab, and Letterman persistently asked her questions about it. Even though she said many times during the interview that she didn't want to talk about it, he still kept pressing, leading her to cry. Next up was Janet Jackson. Letterman was pressing her about her infamous Super Bowl incident, asking her questions about how the wardrobe malfunction came to be. Right after she was asked about it, she replied, quote, "I don't want to relive any of that." But Letterman kept asking while Jackson looked very sad. And in both of these cases and more, Letterman was definitely rude to his guests and crossed major lines with them when they couldn't stand up for themselves. In at number 6, John Mayer. John Mayer is known for his sensual songs about love, but the image that you have of him in your head is probably not true, and he's actually pretty rude in real life. Mayer has spoken poorly about a lot of women that he's dated, including Jessica Simpson and Jennifer Aniston, both of whom still hold grudges to this day. And he said some pretty nasty things about women in general as well, making very inappropriate comments about women, and even going so far as to say that he only finds white women attractive and literally no one else. And speaking of all that, John has also used a lot of racial slurs slurs in the past, saying the N-word with the hard R on a few occasions, and he actually never even apologized. So yeah, remember that next time you hear him on the radio. Halfway at number 5, Wendy Williams. Wendy Williams basically trashes most celebrities on her show and has a reputation for taking low blows when talking about celebrities. She's made enemies out of practically everyone in the business for her mean-spirited rants. One person she has savagely gone after is Meghan Markle. When Harry and Meghan first got together, she said, quote, "There's way too much drama with her and this will not work out." When the two later got married and Meghan became a royal, Wendy said on her show that Meghan, quote, "weaseled her way into the kingdom." Then when Wendy was talking about the documentary Harry and Meghan: An African Journey, Meghan spoke about how she was warned that she should stay away from Harry, as the tabloids would ruin her life. But Wendy didn't buy that and said, quote, "Yes, you did. You knew exactly what you were doing. Please don't try to garner sympathy from us." In at number 4, Pete Davidson. Pete Davidson has just made enemies out of the Paul brothers after he publicly trashed Jake Paul during his boxing stream. Before the Jake Paul-Ben Askren fight, Davidson, who was the host, went viral several times for mocking Paul during backstage segments. At one point, Davidson even asked a question that ended up getting believed in the broadcast. Many believe it was related to the recent claims by a woman that Jake forced himself on her. Later, Davidson also said that he should be in jail. After the fight, Jake and the entire Paul family trashed Davidson, with Jake saying that Pete will not be invited back to host. Jake's dad even said at one point, quote, "Can I fight that piece of shit?" And at number 3, Michael Bay. Not only has director Michael Bay been referred to as a major sexist by celebrities like Megan Fox, he probably doesn't mind, as celebrities speculate that he wants a dictator-like reputation on set. Apparently, he treats his set like a war zone and directs his staff like they're his subordinates that need to be put in place. But he doesn't keep those strict rules for himself, and he's been known to show up hours late for shoots, and then the moment his feet touch the ground, it's go, go, go from there. He basically wants everything done very fast and leaves no room for joking around or even contemplating anything. His staff has also claimed that he berates them for hours and hours on set with harassing comments. In at number 2, Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber has done some insane stuff over the years, like almost running over a photographer in one of his cars. He's done other controversial stuff like spit over a crowd of adoring fans. This happened in Toronto. Justin took to his balcony where hundreds of people were desperately waiting outside to see a glimpse of the star. But when Justin came out, he actually spat on them. Him and his wife also don't seem to have thick skin and have been known to sue people on TikTok who expose things about them that they don't like one plastic surgeon who exposed what procedures that he thought Hailey had done. And finally, at number 1, Michael Jordan. I actually didn't know this before, but apparently Michael Jordan is one of the rudest and meanest celebrities out there. Rapper Chamillionaire exposed a story of when Jordan was incredibly rude to him. The rapper met Jordan at a party and wanted a picture and autograph with him, which Jordan refused. Chamillionaire said that Jordan told him, quote, "I'm not taking pictures with anybody." Then when the rapper tried to explain that he was a huge fan and had just purchased a $7,000 commemorative Michael Jordan jersey, Jordan replied saying, quote, "You know what? I'll tell you what, I'll pay you $15,000 right now for a jersey from me and I'll take a picture with you." Jordan is known to be a businessman, but that is just ridiculous, especially after he had already bought a jersey. Like, that's crazy. Jordan was also apparently banned from a Miami country club because he was rude to an official when he was confronted about what he was wearing. Jordan's team later released a statement saying, quote, "I guess it's their loss, as MJ is a great golfer and a great guest." So that's all for the video, guys. Let me know your thoughts below. If you liked the video and want to see more, make sure to like and sub to the channel below. I've been your host, Mackenzie Smith, and I will catch you all in the next one.